Hey everybody, welcome to our webinar today. It's presented by Hennepin Marketing, Invoca, and Ring Partner, and it is on how to connect calls from paid search to sales. So here are your presenters today. One of them will be myself, Jacob Brown, and if I mentioned Jacob Brown in the office here at Hennepin, everyone would give me a funny look because everyone knows me as Juice Brown here. So if you've ever heard Juice amongst any of these webinars, that would be me. And then there's Ed, who is Director of Demand Generation at Invoca, and then Henry Ski, who is the Partner Success Manager at Ring Partner. So if you want to join the conversation with us, you can include the hashtag ThinkPPC in your tweets throughout the webinar, and you can also tweet at Julia, Henry, or myself throughout the webinar as well, and we'll get you some answers after the webinar via Twitter. So how we're going to start this thing off, question or how long our audience has been in paid search. So you'll select one of the following here: less than 1 year, 1 to 3 years, 3 to 5 years, or 5+ years, which we were just talking about this the other day, where it's kind of interesting how quickly time flies. But I've been in the industry for 4 years, around 3 of those years being here at Hennepin, and then the other year being split between being an intern at a smaller agency than Hennepin in Columbus, Ohio, and then also working in-house at an electronics component company up in northern Minnesota. So how long have you been in the PPC industry, Henry?
Just about 8 or 9 years. I've worked at Neverblue for just about 6, Ring Partner for just about 3, and never doing paid search like as a publisher myself, but sort of in the waiting room rather than in the operating room. So I hear a lot of things, but I never have actually gone in myself. But yeah, absolutely thrilled to be here, and hopefully my experience will yield to some helpful notes for some prospective buyers.
And Julia, you want to give a little background on your experience in PPC?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in digital marketing in general for about 10 years now, and PPC has always been one of the most important channels for me as a marketer within that sort of broader world of digital marketing. So I would say a fair amount of kind of broader experience and exposure to PPC, and then in the past 2 years at Invoca, where I head up demand generation, have been a little bit more focused specifically on PPC and working really closely with our agency to drive our own results, and then working with customers who are leveraging call intelligence to be driving better results from their PPC.
Awesome. Yeah, so as the audience can tell, a variety of experiences within PPC between the 3 of us, and that is what I think will make this a good group to speak to this topic. So with the poll results here, we can see that the majority of our audience is 1 to 3 year range. Quite a bit of our audience is 3 to 5 years, and only 11% of our audience has less than 1 year. So it looks like a good variety across the board there. So as we move forward here with our presentation, I'll get us started and kind of speak to what if you don't have all the information you want. So what if you don't have a tracking system such as Invoca that can help you with connecting that call to a sale. And both Julie and I will speak to this a little bit, but I just kind of wanted to dig into that and what you could do to kind of validate how to optimize off of calls when they probably perform so much differently than obviously a direct sale does. And so if you're seeing them both as a conversion, how you can go about valuing both of them, but valuing both of them how they should be valued. So here, the first question that you need to ask yourself is, can you track calls at the keyword level? So in order to optimize based off of calls, you always want to be able to get that call information at the keyword level. The majority of our accounts at Hennepin do have these capabilities, but I have worked in accounts where they use a software program where it only can kind of bring in campaign level with the UTM tracking and things of that nature. In that case, you can budget based off of where calls are coming from and budget your campaigns that way. And I would recommend also segmenting campaigns as much as get more detailed as to where calls are coming in at. But overall, you would want to look into budgeting off of calls and then just optimizing based off of normal conversions in these situations. The second thing is, do you have time on call data available? Meaning, can you at least see if a user was on the phone for 20 minutes with your sales team, or if a user was on the phone for 30 seconds? And then you can kind of back into what's the likelihood that it ended up being a sale. So maybe if a user's on the phone for 20 minutes, there's an 80% chance that that contributed to a sale based off of your data, where if a user was on the phone for 30 seconds, there's more of a 2% chance. And then you can utilize that information you have to kind of look into what actually contributed to a sale from the call side. And then the final one is, do you have call sale data available? So if you have this data available, you can almost ignore the majority of my part of the presentation, and this is kind of the best possibility for your team, obviously, is to get hooked up with a partner like Invoca, where they can help you with getting this in place, where you can track the calls to sale. So like I said, what I'm going to review here a little bit more is creating a point system based off of calls and sales together, so that if you don't have all the information you want on the back end with calls, you can at least kind of come up with your own way of showing value to calls that are occurring in your account. So the first question you want to ask is, what percentage of calls lead to sales? So this can be just one number where you say, hey, 40% of my calls typically turn into a sale. Or like we said previously, if you have time data where you say if someone was on the call for 20 minutes, 80%, if someone was on the call for 20 seconds, 2%, so on and so forth, you can kind of put it into segments of time that way and then optimize accordingly if you're able to dig into that data at the keyword level. And then what is the average order value of the product category? So that's another big one, because you're just going to end up multiplying these two numbers together. So say I have a 40% chance that each call turns into a sale, and our average order value for that particular product in that campaign is $1,000, then we're going to take the 40% times 1,000 to say the majority of our calls end up getting us this amount of revenue. And that's kind of how you back into that revenue number when you're tracking only calls and not able to see if the call actually contributed to a sale. So I'm going to go ahead and run through an example here of this. So this is just keyword level data, and as you can see, we're tracking sales, we're tracking phone calls, and they're both logging as a conversion, but obviously we can see the revenue tied to a sale and we can't see the revenue tied to a phone call. So as we look into the interface, we can see that that top campaign has 18 conversions, but 9 of those are sales and 9 of those are phone calls. And then you can see really with the other two keywords, with the 10 conversions and then the 9 conversions, completely different AOVs, because the 10 conversions one is only seeing 1 sale, while 9 of those are phone calls, and the bottom one is seeing 6 sales, while 3 of our conversions are phone calls. So digging into this data, if you took cost per conversion into consideration, that would be valuing direct sales and phone calls evenly, which we don't want to do. And if you took only ROAS, that would be completely ignoring calls at all. So that's essentially the two options you typically have for performance metrics within the AdWords interface, and neither of those work in this situation. So how do we create a point system to make it so that we can appropriately value phone calls? So this is just kind of a basis that we created for this particular situation. So for these 3 particular keywords, they're all in different product categories. And so for product category number 1, and I do apologize for the blurriness here at the top, but for product category number 1, we can see that the cost to sale average is 40%, and it is actually the same across all categories, but where they differentiate is on the average order value, with 2,500 being the average order value for that first product category, 3,000 for the second, and 6,250 for that final product category. So obviously a sale on that final product category is worth a lot more to us. And then the points per call is just those two numbers multiplied together. So if we get a call on product category number 3, we're giving at 2,500 points. That's the average amount of revenue we would get per call on that category, is essentially what it comes down to. So then when we look at that bottom data, like I spoke to previously, if you look at just cost per conversion, you can see that those top 2 keywords are very similar, but keyword number 2 is performing quite a bit better. If you look at only ROAS, you can see that keyword number 1 is by far our top performer. But then once you add this call data into play and you go by this adjusted ROAS or points divided by cost, that's where those top 2 keywords look very similar. And then on that bottom keyword, you can see our ROAS went from 5.71 to 6.85. So say our goal is to get a $6 ROAS. We now know that this keyword is more than likely reaching goals when you implement the call data, which is then when you can adjust bids upwards rather than down because of the ROAS of 5.71. So like I said, creating a point system like this can be extremely helpful. If this is all kind of the data that you have within the interface, it's just seeing how many calls are getting brought in, just finding out what percentage of those calls are contributing to sales, and then utilizing that average order value to come up with how many points you should attribute to each call can be extremely helpful and let you essentially optimize with reasoning amongst calls and your sales without really having to get sale data in place. With all that being said, it's obviously best bet to get that sale data in place so you can see if the percentage of calls contributing to sales is different on one keyword comparably to the other keyword. And so that is some of the stuff that Julia will help you dig into as I pass it over to her.
Great, thanks, Jacob. So yeah, what I'm going to be talking through is taking sort of a broader look at getting complete, really end-to-end attribution for calls driven by paid search, but also going a step further beyond attribution and looking at all the kinds of neat things you can do with the data that you're capturing on a call to better optimize your PPC campaigns. So to start, I want to kind of take a step back and look at the overall strategy that you're using when you're thinking about calls and how they relate to paid search. So on the next slide here, I'm sharing some stats on just the value of calls. I'm guessing this probably isn't complete news to most of you on the webinar today, but calls compared to web leads definitely convert at a much higher rate. We see on average about a 2 to 3% conversion rate for clicks versus approximately 30 to 50% for phone calls. So definitely a higher converting type of lead. And then also they tend to have a higher average order value. This kind of makes sense because once you get someone on the phone, you can really dive into what their individual needs are, offer different upsell opportunities, and create more of a personalized sale experience. So long story short, calls are really valuable, and if your business does any kind of transactions over the phone, or if it's a considered purchase and calls are sort of part of that path to purchase, then it definitely makes sense that calls shouldn't just be a big part of your paid search strategy, but perhaps you may even want to be optimizing and prioritizing for call conversions over web conversions. It really depends on your business model and how your customers interact with you. So moving on to what you should be thinking about when you're getting started with trying to drive call conversions and incorporating calls into your strategy. The first step is really to think beyond just those call-only campaigns and click-to-call buttons in the ad. You really want to think about that entire end-to-end customer experience and make sure that you're optimizing all of your landing pages for calls as well. So this may seem sort of like low-hanging fruit and kind of a no-brainer, but it's surprising how many times you'll visit a mobile website and not find a phone number anywhere easily accessible. So make sure that you're including a really strong call to action on the landing page with phone number above the fold. Make it really easy to find and clickable. What you may find as well once you start tracking, so this is me just sharing what we're seeing at Invoca, but about 70% of our conversions from our call conversions from paid search come from the landing page, not the ad directly. So this is just sort of reinforcing the point that people aren't necessarily clicking directly from the ad. It really depends on the type of your business. Chances are people will want to visit a landing page, get a little bit more information before they decide to call you. But when they do get to that landing page, it's always easier to just click that call button rather than fill out a lengthy form on a mobile device. So the next thing that I recommend everyone consider, and Jacob touched on this as well in his presentation, is the idea that not all calls are created equal. So this is the same principle applies to lead forms as well, but it's especially important with calls because calls are more expensive for your business to handle, right? There's someone on the phone who's taking their time to have that conversation, whether it's an inside sales team or a call center. So you really want to be careful that you're optimizing for good quality calls and not kind of junking up your call center or your sales team with bad quality calls. And so when you're thinking about keyword performance, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No problem, Julia. This is exactly what I was speaking to during the point system part of the presentation that you would hit on. As you can see here, obviously, calls vary in terms of quality. And you can see some of that with a point system and try to weave it out. But with a system like Invoca, they can actually show you here, for example, keyword B obviously brings in a lot of quality calls, while keyword A brings in a lot of calls, but not nearly the quality that keyword B sees. And so essentially that's the big kind of hole within the point system, and that's why you would want to utilize a system like Invoca that can really help you dig even farther into your call data.
Exactly, and I appreciate you talking about the value of a system like Invoca. Aside from just talking up Invoca itself, yeah, the whole idea of you shouldn't really be counting the number of calls. You need to be looking beyond that to what is the outcome of these calls. Are they turning into booked appointments, into sales, and so on, and then be optimizing for the keywords that are driving those calls that actually end up in revenue. So really don't just focus on total volume of calls. So when you're getting started and kind of thinking about how can you get more accurate attribution for calls from paid search, these are some of the questions that you should ask yourself and hopefully be able to answer, or at least start putting the right tools and processes in place to be able to answer. So as I just mentioned, things like how many qualified conversions are coming from calls, not just from the ads themselves, but from your landing pages. How do things kind of break down between total conversions from calls versus total conversions from leads? Do people like to call your business more than they like to fill out lead forms? Because that can give you kind of a roadmap of optimizing for the preferred customer experience. Look at what your current cost per conversion is for digital web conversions, and then think about how that would probably decrease if you start including all of the call conversion data as well. And then start digging into which campaigns and keywords are driving the most qualified calls and actual revenue to your business. So next I'll talk a little bit about how easy it is to get this kind of granular attribution if you do use a call intelligence platform. So this is a screenshot directly from Invoca's specific interface, but it gives you an example of the kind of metrics that you can see. In this example, being able to track average cost per call at both the campaign and ad group level. So this is pulling in data directly from your AdWords account. This is an important metric to monitor trends over time and really take a look at significant fluctuations, comparing the average cost per lead and average cost per call, and really trying to identify different optimization opportunities based on that metric. You can also pull this data into your existing dashboards in platforms like Analytics or other tools that you're using. And all the data that's being captured by a solution like Invoca is really granular level keyword attribution that allows you to measure the campaign, the ad group, and the keyword that drove each individual call from paid search. So then you can tie each of these individual calls back to the actual revenue that resulted from the call, whether it's a sale if you're a B2C business, or whether it's an opportunity and eventual sale if you're on the B2B side of things. You really get that visibility quite easily into all of those different metrics that are driving calls. Another added bonus is having leads from calls created in real time in your CRM solution. Typically when an inbound call comes to a business, there isn't a really smooth sort of record on the marketing side of what drove that call. If you're on the B2B side of things, it's up to a sales rep to actually create a lead in your CRM and try and capture any kind of attribution data. On the B2C side, it depends what different sort of call center tools or DMP or CRM solutions you're using, but usually it's more of a manual process, and often the attribution can get lost for marketers. Whereas using a call intelligence platform, these leads, these customer profiles are created in real time in your CRM. So this way marketing actually has insight and full visibility into what's driving the calls, and the marketing campaigns get credit. I talked about how you can kind of pull this data into all the different platforms you use. So here's an example of how it works, integrating call data and pulling it into your existing web analytics platforms. How it works is we capture the unique analytics identifier. An API pushes that data in real time into the platform. And then you can see a sample report here where calls are viewable right alongside all of your other web metrics. So you can really start to compare the performance of one versus the other and get some ideas on where you can better optimize and opportunities for improvement. So now I'm going to provide a few examples of what you can do to kind of take things a step further, going beyond just attribution and creating a better customer experience and leveraging all this great call data to make smarter optimizations. So the first example is, as I just mentioned, creating a better customer experience. So when you're using tools like Google Call Extensions and forwarding numbers, they are great. They're easy and simple to kind of get started, but they treat every caller the same. So this means that no matter who's kind of clicking through and placing that call, it's always going to be routed to the same person on the other end, because there's no sort of logic or call routing happening in the background to make sure that you're connecting that caller with the best recipient. So with a platform like Invoca, in real time, based on the caller profile, so demographic data, what regions they're calling from, things like their age, other information that's done through a real-time data dip, you can route them to the best qualified recipient of the phone call, whether that's a sales rep in a certain region, whether it's the customer support center. And you can also do this based on things like what offers they were searching for, what landing pages they're calling from, and so on. So the end result is, say you're in the insurance industry, you're able to match a caller from California who meets maybe a lower risk insurance profile with the appropriate call center agent in California who deals specifically with that profile of potential customer. So it's really creating a seamless, faster, better experience for the customer, connecting them right away with the person that they need, rather than potentially having them go through a series of being passed off to different reps or agents until they get to the person that can actually help them solve their problem.
Julia, sorry to jump in. You also don't want to scare the caller away, so I'm really glad that we switched out my picture with the picture of the woman in the blue shirt there. That's going to yield way more calls than my face would.
Yes, that's actually one of our friendly Invoca sales reps.
Fantastic.
Yeah, yep. So the next optimization that you can do is making smarter budget allocations. And then by this I mean just reallocating the budget to the keywords and ad groups that are driving your high quality calls. So looking at all the reports that I just sort of walked us through, you can sometimes discover new untapped keywords that perhaps weren't driving any kind of online lead conversions, but are driving calls and can be an untapped source of new high quality revenue. The flip side is you might discover keywords that are driving junk calls, and so you can cut back your money on those, save money, and start reallocating budget to other ad groups and keywords that are driving higher quality calls. One other thing that we've noticed a lot of marketers optimize on once they start using a platform like Call Intelligence is they are identifying keywords that they thought were not performing very well digitally for them, so they shut them off altogether. And then when they realized, well, actually, this wasn't driving a lot of web leads, but it was driving a ton of call conversions that were resulting in revenue, and so they turned those keywords back on. So quite a few different ways that you can use that call conversion data to shuffle your budget around and be spending a little bit more wisely. And then last but not least, the last kind of optimization tip I wanted to touch upon is conversion rate optimization. So just the reminder or the tip to be including call conversions in any kind of landing page A/B test that you're using. I know PPC marketers, we all love to make sure that we're optimizing those landing pages for the best possible conversion experience. But often if you're not tracking call conversions from those landing pages, you're getting a false sense of the performance of each type of page. So the example I'm giving here is actually a customer of Invoca's that historically were doing a lot of landing page A/B tests but weren't tracking the call conversions from them, and so they ended up shutting down their B page because it didn't look like it was converting. Well, when they started layering in call conversions, they saw that it was actually converting almost twice as much as the option A. And so it was driving fewer web conversions, but it was driving more than double the volume of call conversions, which in turn drove more than double the amount of revenue for them. So they were able to make a different decision and actually scrap page A and go with page B because the volume volume of revenue it was driving from those call conversions. So lots of neat things you can do with split testing once you start looking at both online and offline conversions from your landing pages. And so those are just some ideas to kind of get started, get you thinking about all the kind of neat things that you can do to improve your campaign performance by layering in that really granular, detailed call attribution data.
Nice. All right. Thank you, Julia. And one of the most important things I can stress to a buyer is how easy it is to fix a problem or overcome obstacles when it comes to calls coming in. You'd be surprised how many calls don't even make it through the IVR versus calls where somebody talks to an agent and then they decide that, oh, this person really isn't for me. So one of the things we always tell our buyers is make sure that you yourself go through the flow of a call. And speaking earlier to what Julia mentioned about having like a good flow throughout, it's really easy to annoy people when they're trying to get an answer that they want and instead they're hearing a robot voice again, or they're asking for their credit card again, or they're asking for, if you wanted to talk about pineapples, press 1. And you're like, I already said I wanted to talk about pineapples. Why can't I ever talk to a person? So that flow, like Julia mentioned, is so crucial and one of the key objectives you can obtain by just again going through the flow and removing any obstacles or any artificial hurdles. It's difficult enough, to get new customers, and the fact that you've got people calling in, you've already got 90% of the effort done. People are clearly interested in your product, aside from a few maybe butt dials, or maybe they're totally confused and calling the wrong number. But 90% of the people calling in are interested in your service. Don't shoot yourself in the foot. One of the other things that really frustrates me is when I listen to a call go into a buyer and somebody, the caller will think they're calling in about, some brand name specific thing, like they really want to talk to Bob's Plumbing. And so when they call and they hit Sally's Plumbing, Sally might pick up and the first thing they'll say is, hey, is this Bob's Plumbing? And Sally will be like, no, this is Sally's Plumbing, sorry, and hangs up on them. It drives me crazy. There's an obstacle you can get rid of. All you have to do is say, no, we're not Bob's, we're Sally's. How can I help you? There's a reason that our pay-per-call offers are based on a duration. There's a reason that duration is in there. Use it. That buffer is in there so you can ascertain if it's a valued lead, like a valid sale, or if somebody's made a mistake. So again, go through the flow, make sure your agents or whoever's answering the phone, be it Sally herself or her new sales training assistant, make sure they're completely aware of the duration. Ask a couple of questions of the caller and you can remove any hurdles you want. That's something really to keep in mind.
Do you have a lot of pineapple clients over at Ring Partner, Henry?
Not a ton of pineapple clients, but I saw one in the grocery store the other day, Jake, and I was so excited, but it was, even I could tell that it wasn't really all that ripe. I don't know what it was doing out there, and I really like pineapple, so that was the example I used. Then I switched it up to plumbing. Much better example. So one of the things we tell our publishers to do before they send a call is to what I call prime the caller. So what we want to avoid is people calling in with, just looking for some information. They're information hunting or seeking, and the last thing on their mind is that they're actually going to go through with a sale. You don't want that. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of your agent's time. You never know. They might get on, and they might be a chatty person, and they might take up 2 or 3 minutes, and you end up paying for a lead where you don't want to be rude and hang up on somebody. So it's our job to make sure that we prime the caller, and you can do that in a number of different ways. Primarily, you want to do it on your creative. So things like a landing page or your ad text. You want people to have a very clear idea about what they're calling in about. Additionally, you can do that as a buyer. You can do that on your IVR. Make sure you welcome people. Keep it short, keep it concise, but just remind them why they're calling in. Even a slogan is a really good way of reminding people why they're calling in. I forget things all the time. I literally forgot that my work keys were in my backpack, and I got here early, and I just stood outside, like trying to open the door. So people forget things on the way to the call. I mean, they've dialed the number and then maybe they hit an IVR or there's dead air for 4 or 5 seconds and all of a sudden they've forgotten why they're calling. They might hang up. So make sure to remind them, thank you for calling Sally's Plumbing, the flush your problems away. I don't know, some kind of slogan or motto to kind of reinforce the notion that they've correctly called the right number and that they're going to talk to somebody about your service. So that's what we want to do. We want to put the caller in the mindset to make sure that we're going to have a good conversation and most importantly, a good sales call. I get a lot of calls, guys, not necessarily pineapple buyers, but a lot of buyers will call in saying, hey, do you do calls for blank? Solar, moving, a lot of viable offers where people would want to call in, but they just don't perform as well on pay-per-call because there's a lack of urgency. Urgency is really, really key when you're looking to buy calls on pay-per-call and using paid search. For a lot of offers like roofing or student loan, that tends to do okay on things like social media where people might be browsing and they might see something on their feed that might go, oh yeah, I should get that tree removed, or oh, my grandkids did trip over that stump in the backyard, I should get that removed. But when it comes to like real urgency where you want people calling in your number right away and you're going to be doing it on paid search for things that needs attention yesterday. So things like plumbing, electricians, tow trucks, locksmith, things like that where people have no choice but to pick up their Google or Bing something immediately and they're going to click on the first couple of results they see because they need to talk to somebody yesterday. So that sense of urgency is really crucial. And again, you can put yourself in the mindset of a caller. We've all been callers. We've all looked online. We've all called into businesses. So we get what a good flow is going to be versus a bad one. We understand that process is vital. If you hit a number and you really want to talk to somebody and you hit a bad IVR or it's just taking too long to pick up, first thing you're going to do is hang up and call the next person. So keep that in mind as well. If you have a business that you think might do really well, try and create some kind of urgency to really persuade people to call in. Seasonality is a big one. Seasonality is probably one of the most important factors for some of our campaigns. So now being a ginger, I don't love the summer, I'm going to warn you guys, but I know a lot of people do. They love the sunshine, they like sunbathing, they like working out in the garden, they like beautifying their lawn. Okay, so now we get campaigns like landscaping, yard maintenance, pest control, pool service. People like going on vacation in the summer because kids are out of school, so travel, things like that. Students are preparing to go into college or university, and so they're looking at their student loans. This is really important when you're looking at the seasonality of campaigns. I went shopping for camping stuff the other day at Canadian Tire, and since it was at the tail end of the season, I was able to get really good deals. So if you're a buyer and you're looking to buy calls for, something like that, pest control or flights or something like that where, typically it starts to dip in the fall, think of ways that you can really entice people to do that because you're just not going to get the traffic that you would at the height of the seasonality peak, if that makes sense. Jacob, I think earlier we discussed that you might be able to speak a little bit to this as well.
Yeah, so not necessarily on just the call side, but in the PPC side of things, this is something that a lot of people miss quite a bit in terms of just looking at seasonality differences, just 2 weeks over 2 weeks, month over month, even week over week sometimes. So some examples of that would be some locational bidding and seeing, hey, in August, say we're selling summer clothes or something around that, sunglasses, something around that, and we see, hey, in August, our conversion rate was really good for Bloomington, Indiana, which is where Hennepin's located, but our conversion rate was about the same in Florida as it was in Bloomington, Indiana. And then saying, okay, so our conversion rates were the same, so putting the same bid modifiers on those locations for September and October isn't necessarily the way you want to go. So a lot of people just use recent performance and not seasonal performance. So the true way to go about this is utilizing both, where we look at, okay, they both performed pretty similarly in August, but what if we look back last year and we see that Bloomington for this product category actually from August to September last year saw a 50% drop in conversion rates because of the weather changes. And so that's where we have to make kind of those decisions on, okay, so we actually, even though recently Bloomington, Indiana has performed extremely well on these categories, we have to pull back bids and kind of looking towards the future and projecting based off of last year's and the years before performance that those rates will actually dip moving into September, October, and November. So I think that's kind of a way people go about bidding and things of that nature. They typically just look at recent performance and then move forward and bid based off of recent performance, but taking seasonality into consideration. Another example is Black Friday to Cyber Monday. Looking at how much differently things perform from Black Friday to Cyber Monday from a conversion rate standpoint to the previous time, and so we can project that same sort of change this year and then make our bid changes accordingly, rather than either A, just guessing, hey, we should probably see a lift in our sales, so let's raise bids, or B, just using previous data from the previous month. Just looking at last year and seeing, hey, what were the differences last year in our conversion rates? And so then bidding accordingly to what we can expect for this year. And so I think seasonality is huge, and not just kind of guessing what seasonality will look like, but looking into the numbers. And as long as you've had an account open for over a year, 2 to 3 years, you can definitely make changes accordingly to what you saw seasonality-wise in the previous years.
That's very true, Jacob. All very, very good points. Or Jake or Judas, we're going to have to tell me the story about that nickname a little bit later on. But yeah, if I can really sort of convince any prospective buyer listening, be early to the party. Don't wait for the seasonality or the season to change before diving in. 6 to 8 weeks is a really good buffer to kind of give yourself time to work it out. See how the landscape is on paid search. Is Google going to change things up? Because we know they're going to. So don't be late to the party. Prepare yourself so when that onslaught of traffic happens, you'll be well established.
Cool. So next round here for the webinar, we're going to ask another question. Would you like an offer from either Ring Partner, Invoca, or Hannapin? So obviously just fill it out as you feel needs. So yes, you would like an offer from Ring Partner. Yes, you would like an offer from Invoca, and you get that $25 Amazon gift card. Or yes, you would like an account analysis from Hannapin Marketing. If you're interested in all three, obviously that option's there as well. So, so did you want to speak at all to the Ring Partner deal, Henry?
Totally. So that's for new buyers that want to sign up with Ring Partner. 5 free calls, a maximum of $50. Get your foot in the door. See how the calls are. We have categories in many different areas: insurance, financial, home services. Basically, if you feel people are keen to call in about your product, then we'll work with you. Just make sure to reach out, mention that you saw us on the webinar with Hannapin and Invoca, and we'll make sure we go ahead and give you that deal. And you can go to ringpartner.com and click the Buy Calls link there.
Cool. And Julia, did you want to speak to the Invoca deal?
Yeah, happy to. So I don't think I actually ever explicitly stated what Invoca does. I kept saying call intelligence platform, and so that's what we are. We are a call intelligence platform. So our platform provides full granular attribution for all of the calls that you're driving from paid search and any channel, any marketing channel. And we provide not just attribution, but full data and insights into what's happening on the call, what's being said on the call, and help you get that data back into all of the different systems you use. So if you're interested in seeing a demo and getting a better sense of how exactly it works and how it could help your business, that's what we're here for. And we also know that everyone's time is really valuable. And so in exchange for your time, we're offering a $25 Amazon gift card. So if you're interested, we will be sending a quick email to everyone after the webinar with a link to schedule a time to just chat with us so we can learn a little bit more about your business and get a customized demo set up for you. You can also visit invoca.com and learn more about our platform as well.
Cool. Sounds good. And as I stated before, for $15K a month, you would get an account analysis from the Hannapin team. And we have multiple analyst directors and account managers who would be involved with the analysis on your account. And so that would be the deal coming from Hannapin. So like we said before, If you're interested in all three, go ahead and fill that out. If you're interested in one or the others, you can fill that out, or else you can register this with no thanks. Cool. So now we're going to go into the live Q&A here. We have a few questions from everybody out there. So just to get us started off here, a few questions for you and Invoca, Julia. So the first question was, what platforms does your system integrate with? So I'm assuming they mean with the search engines and things of that nature. You integrate calls into Google, Bing, or Google Analytics and things of that nature.
Yeah, it's almost sort of like what platforms don't we integrate with. We've got really tight integrations directly with Google AdWords and Analytics. Through our APIs, we can basically push the data and it to be, if you use bid management solutions like Kenshu, Marin, Acquisio, we've got direct integrations with them as well. With marketing automation platforms and with CRM systems like Salesforce, Adobe, and so on. So pretty much anyone you'd want to integrate with, we do. And in many cases, it's a direct native integration. But if it's a solution that we don't have a native integration with, then we do it easily for you via API.
Sounds good. And it looks like you're the popular one here, Julia. A lot of questions coming your way. So within that integration, is Omniture one that you would be able to integrate with as well?
Yes.
Yeah, so that was a specific question, and then the other specific question was around the cost of Invoca Monthly and everything kind of around the pricing of Invoca. So if you wanted to hit on that, you can.
I can give you sort of, so how it works is it's a monthly SaaS, software as a service platform fee, and then an additional fee based on the volume of calls that you get. So we sort of create a package that's the right size for your business, because the volume of calls and the resources on our end can vary if you're an SMB to an enterprise. So flat monthly software fee, and then a small additional package for the actual telephony or call volume that you use. So reach out to us and we'll provide more specific details based on your business needs.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds similar to an answer that we would have as well. Obviously, it varies based off their business needs and everything like that. Next question was for you, Henry. So just to give out some more examples as to what type of businesses would work well with Ring Partner.
Sure. So like I mentioned before, home services is really big, but I can kind of elaborate on what kind of home services, and we actually kind of take into account other categories that you might not associate with the home. So things like dentists and doctors are really, really big this month. Health and auto insurance, life insurance as well, but just not quite as much volume there. Quite a lot of legal calls, and again, that speaks to urgency in that people may have a legal situation and most of us don't really know what our options are. They just want to talk to somebody. They don't want to fill out a form because they might not be able to know what information to input there. I mentioned tow trucks before, appliance repair and TV repair, and also the seniors market. Walk-in bathtubs, shower remodeling, and stair lifts are not the sexiest sounding of offers, but any time that somebody calls in about this, they're usually highly motivated, and the conversion rates are usually very good about that as well. And again, things like rehab, financial stuff like tax debt, HVAC is going to be big throughout the year. That's heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, and podiatrist. So there's just a slew of categories. Again, if you feel that people are calling into your business and you feel that you're capable of handling that, please reach out to us, and we'll be happy to test out almost anything.
Sounds good. The last question was, or last couple questions, I guess, here were really CRO based, and so I think Julia did a great job at explaining kind of how to go about utilizing CRO to not only enhance call volume, but looking at your call volume and your lead form fill-outs and seeing which one's more likely to convert, and then drawing the focus to that. So I think it was kind of, the questions were worded a little bit differently, but kind of the same question as to should we put more focus on call buttons, or should we put more focus on lead forms and things of that nature. And I think really what it comes down to is first getting into a system like Invoca and seeing which one, if calls do typically lead to sales more often than forms, or vice versa. And I'm kind of glad Julia and I were kind of in this conversation together, because she focused more on the lead gen side while I focused more on the e-commerce side of calls and how to compare them to sales, and you focused a lot on calls and how to compare them to lead forms. And so that was kind of a good balance, I think. And like I said, with the CRO side, I think first things first, figure out which one's more likely to lead to a sale, and then try to draw the focus to that one, obviously.
Yeah,
cool.
so I was just going to say, yeah, I think you can't really make optimization decisions until you kind of know what your baseline is, and so making sure you've got a phone number there prominently, but get yourself at least a month or two of data to see what the volume of calls is compared to digital conversions, and then also look at which does your business prefer, right? Which is more valuable to your business? Is it a call, or is it like a web conversion or an e-commerce conversion? And kind of start making decisions from there.
Yeah, exactly. And to that point, it could be different based off of what area of your business we're talking about as well. So maybe in one area of your business, there's a whole call center ready to go, and that's where a lot of the sales come in, and that's kind of the main focus. Another area in the business, they more so look through the emails and then contact, and they've noticed that's a better line of success. So you could have different landing pages based off of your area of the business and put more focus on the phone number in one area and less focus on the phone number in the other area. So definitely just have to dig deeper into your own business first and then go from there. But that is all the questions we have for today. Thanks again, Julia and Henry, for joining Hannafin for the webinar today. Again, if you have any feedback, you can email marketing@hannafinmarketing.com. You could also directly tweet at Julia, Henry, or myself with the Twitter feeds you saw earlier in the presentation. Any way you want to contact the three of us or contact Hannafin with any questions you have works for us. So thanks again to everybody for attending today. I hope you learned some things on this webinar through page search and call tracking, and we hope to see you on the next one.